I have to be honest with you. I've been staring at this stack of notes for about 2 hours now.
I blame you. It's a lot.
Usually when we prep for these deep dives, I'm looking for the hook, you know? The one thing that makes the story just click.
Right.
But with this one, I don't even know where to look because the numbers alone are just paralyzing.
It is a heavy one today. I think paralyzing is exactly the right word.
Yeah.
We're dealing with a scale of violence that just doesn't compute for most of us.
Exactly. For those of you listening, we're talking about a man named Pedro Rodrigues Filho. But in Brazil, and really in the entire history of crime, he is known as Pedrinho Matador.
Little Pedro the Killer.
Right. And the source material we're looking at today, look, I read the abstract and I genuinely thought it was a typo.
The body count.
Yes.
Yeah.
He claimed responsibility for over 70 killings. 70.
And that's the low estimate, depending on which interviews you listen to. Some sources hint at even higher numbers, but 70 is the generally accepted figure for his career, if you can call it that.
A career? Man, that's a chilling way to put it. But 70 people. I want everyone listening to really think about that. That is a crowded bus.
Yeah.
That's a full movie theater. It's a small village. And we aren't talking about a soldier in a war zone dropping bombs from a drone where there's distance.
No, it's very different.
We're talking about one man, face-to-face, hands-on violence.
It's an intimately violent act every single time.
Right. And usually when you see a number like that, prolific serial killers, you know, the Bundys or the Gacy's, you expect a very specific profile.
The shadow monster.
Exactly. The guy who hides in the dark, preys on the innocent, and runs from the light. But here's the thing that kept me up reading this last night. Pedrinho didn't hide.
No, he really didn't.
And he didn't see himself as a monster either.
And that right there is the crux of the entire deep dive today. That is the paradox in our title. Pedro Rodrigues Filho did not view himself as a villain. In his own narrative, he was an enforcer of justice.
Which is, I mean, it sounds completely delusional. You kill 70 people and you walk around thinking you're the good guy.
I know.
It sounds like a comic book plot, like The Punisher or something. But this was real life. In Minas Gerais, Brazil.
It does sound delusional, but as we're going to see, it's actually much more complex than simple delusion.
Yeah.
This isn't a guy hearing voices telling him to do things.
Right, no hallucinations.
Exactly. This is a guy operating on a very specific, very rigid, and highly lethal moral code.
And that's what we need to unpack today. Because if we just look at the blood, we miss the actual story here.
Yeah, the why is much more important than the what.
We need to understand why he did it. And maybe more uncomfortably, why so many people in Brazil, well, kind of cheered him on.
That is the part that makes sociologists really nervous.
Yeah.
The public reaction to him.
So here is the mission for this deep dive. We're going to take this source material, which, by the way, is a fascinating case study on the enforcer archetype, and we are going to try to reverse engineer this man. We need to look at the intersection of severe trauma, this clinical concept of antisocial personality disorder, and the absolute collapse of the system around him.
We have to look at the environment.
Yeah.
You really cannot understand Pedrinho Matador without understanding the world that made him.
So buckle up, because this isn't going to be a light ride. We're going from a brutal origin story into the psychology of what the sources call moralistic aggression.
Which is a fascinating concept.
Which I'm going to need you to explain to me later, because it sounds like an oxymoron.
Oh, I will.
And then we'll go through the prison years, which are honestly the wildest part of the entire story. And finally, to his life as a YouTuber.
Yeah. The YouTuber phase.
I still can't get over that.
It is a totally surreal ending to incredibly brutal life.
It really is. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's go back.
Way back.
Way back. Because stories like this, they don't start when the first body drops. They start way before that.
They often start before the subject is even born.
And that's where the source material immediately grabbed me. I was expecting the usual troubled childhood narrative. You know, dad drank, mom was absent.
The standard true crime intro.
Right, but this is entirely different. The timeline starts in 1954 in Minas Gerais, but the trauma clock started ticking months before that.
It did. The clinical reports are quite specific about this, and I warn you, it's difficult to read. Pedro's father wasn't just a bad guy. He was violently abusive.
Yeah.
And he was physically abusing Pedro's mother while she was pregnant with Pedro.
Let's pause on that, because I think we glaze over that. Sometimes people say, oh, domestic violence, that's bad. But we are talking about physical trauma to a pregnant woman.
We're talking about direct kicks to the womb.
Mm.
We are talking about an environment of sheer daily terror.
So biologically speaking, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I have to imagine that does something profound to a developing brain.
Absolutely. The source touches on this nature versus nurture debate, but in this case, the lines are completely blurred. Well, if a fetus is constantly flooded with cortisol, with stress hormones, from the mother's terror, or if there is actual blunt physical trauma to the developing skull,
Right.
you are altering the hardware before the software is even installed.
And the source actually mentions a specific injury, a skull injury.
Yes. Pedro claimed later in life that his father kicked his mother's belly so hard that it damaged his skull while he was still in the womb.
Is that medically verified? Can we actually prove that happened?
The source is pretty ambiguous on the medical verification part. It's almost impossible to prove retrospectively.
Yeah.
But here's a critical thing. Psychologically, it doesn't matter if it's medically 100% accurate.
Because he believed it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What matters is that Pedro believed it.
It's his creation myth.
Yes, perfectly said. It's the absolute foundation of his identity. He walked around his entire life believing he was physically marked by his father's violence before he took his first breath.
He saw himself as damaged goods from day one.
And that creates a narrative of me against the world that is just impossible to shake later in life.
And the father, I mean, this guy sounds like a real piece of work. The source describes him as constantly involved in conflict, crime, just a general agent of chaos in the town.
He was the prototype. Yet we always talk about role models for kids. Pedro's father was a role model of pure violence.
Yeah.
He taught Pedro that communication is weak and violence is effective.
So you have the genetics, maybe a predisposition to aggression.
Right.
You have the prenatal trauma, the brain damage, literal or chemical.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the environment, watching dad beat people up every single day.
It's a perfect storm. It's not just one thing going wrong. It's a cascade of systemic and familial failures.
And the source says this led to antisocial personality traits. Now, when we hear antisocial, we usually think of the guy at a party who stands in the corner and doesn't want to talk to anyone.
The introvert.
Exactly. But that's not what this means in a clinical sense, is it?
No, not at all. In psychology, antisocial quite literally means anti-society.
Okay. It means you do not believe the rules apply to you. It means a fundamental lack of empathy. It means you view other people as objects or obstacles rather than human beings with their own inner lives.
And usually kids learn empathy from their parents, right? They learn like, oh, mommy is sad, I should give her a hug.
Exactly. They mirror the emotions around them. But if mommy is sad because daddy hit her,
Right.
and daddy's the powerful one in the house, the lesson you learn isn't empathy. The lesson you learn is power dynamics.
You learn that the person doing the hitting is the one in charge.
Yes. You learn that violence equals control.
God, that is so bleak. But it explains so much of what comes next.
Yeah.
Because Pedro didn't just become a passive victim of this, he became a student of this violence.
And a very quick learner.
He claimed his father beat him repeatedly as a child, too. So it wasn't just prenatal, it was ongoing physical abuse.
It was a daily reality for him. The source describes a childhood where safety was just a luxury they fundamentally didn't have. So let's fast forward a bit. He's growing up in this absolute pressure cooker, and now he's 14 years old.
Just a kid.
14. I mean, think about what you were doing at 14. I was playing video games and trying to avoid algebra homework. Pedro he's buying a shotgun.
But more likely obtaining one through less than legal means. But yes, 14 is the age of his first homicide.
And this is where the story takes that really sharp turn I mentioned in the intro. Because if you told me an abused kid kills someone at 14, I would guess he killed his dad.
Right out of self-defense.
Or maybe a bully at school. But he didn't.
No.
He killed the deputy mayor of their town.
The town of Santa Rita de Zapucay.
Why? I mean, was it a robbery gone wrong? Did the mayor catch him stealing?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
The motive was purely, well, loyal.
Loyal.
Yeah. The deputy mayor had fired Pedro's father from his job as a school guard.
Wait.
And Pedro felt this was unjust.
Wait, hold on. Let me make sure I'm getting this right. This is the same father who kicked his mother in the stomach.
The very same.
The same father who beat him constantly. And Pedro kills a government official to defend his dad's honor.
It seems completely contradictory, right?
Really?
Why on earth would you defend the monster who abuses you?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
But this is exactly where we have to introduce that concept of moralistic aggression.
Okay, yes. Break this down for me. Because to me, aggression is just... It's just aggression. It's anger. It's losing your temper.
Well, think about reactive aggression first. That's when someone shoves you in a bar and you shove back.
Okay.
It's hot, it's impulsive, it's highly emotional. It's basically an animal instinct.
Fight or flight.
Exactly. Moralistic aggression is entirely different. It's cold. It's structural.
Structural.
It's violence that is framed internally as justified punishment. In Pedro's mind, the deputy mayor didn't just make a bureaucratic staffing decision. He committed a profound moral wrong. He insulted the family.
So Pedro isn't acting like a criminal in his own head. He's acting like a judge.
Precisely. He's the judge, the jury, and the executioner. He is enforcing a code. The code might be totally twisted, like you respect my family or you die, but is a code nonetheless.
It's almost feudal, like a samurai protecting his lord even if the lord is a total tyrant.
That's a really great analogy. It distinguishes him from someone who kills for money or for sexual gratification.
Right, like typical serial killers.
Yeah, Pedro wasn't getting rich off this. He wasn't getting a thrill in the traditional sadistic sense. He was balancing the scales.
And he didn't stop with the mayor?
No. Shortly after that, he killed another man, a school guard.
And the reason for this one?
He believed the guard was the real thief who stole the food that his father had been accused of stealing, which is what got his father fired in the first place.
Oh, wow. So in Pedro's mind, let me trace this logic. My father was falsely accused. The mayor fired him unjustly. The guard is the real culprit. Therefore, they both must die to set the record straight.
That is exactly his thought process.
That is terrifyingly logical. I mean, the logic is insane, but it is logic. It's A plus B equals murder.
And that's what makes him so unbelievably dangerous. You can't reason with him because in his mind, he is the only reasonable person in the room.
Wow.
He's the only one willing to do what needs to be done to restore order.
So he's 14. He's got 2 bodies on his record, and he's on the run. He flees to São Paulo. And this is where you'd think, okay, maybe he falls in with a gang, becomes a drug runner, you know, the typical organized crime story.
And he did get involved in crime in São Paulo.
Right.
He definitely didn't go straight. He robbed drug dens. He killed traffickers.
But again, notice the targets there.
Right. He wasn't robbing old ladies on the street. He was robbing other criminals.
The enforcer persona is really starting to solidify here.
Yes. But the real turning point, the moment that I think truly forged the legend of Pedrinho Matador, happened back home.
Part 3 of our outline, the ultimate taboo.
Patricide.
The killing of the father. I feel like we've been building to this since the prenatal story. It felt almost inevitable, didn't it?
In a literary sense, yes. In a tragic Greek myth sense.
Yeah.
But the catalyst for it was horrific.
Pedro's father, finally succumbing to that lifelong violence, murdered Pedro's mother.
He did.
He killed her with a machete. The slump's details are just gruesome. 21 blows.
It was an absolute massacre.
And when Pedro heard this, I mean, imagine the split in this kid's brain. He had literally killed the deputy mayor to defend this man.
Yes.
He had fled his home, given up his life to protect this man's honor, and now this man has butchered the only person Pedro might have actually loved.
The betrayal is absolute. It shatters whatever code tied him to his father. And the reaction was absolute as well. Pedro vowed revenge.
And not just like, I hope the police catch him and he rots in jail.
No, he vowed to kill him himself.
But the father was already in prison. He was locked up for the mother's murder.
Which for Pedro was just a logistical hurdle. It wasn't a deterrent in the slightest.
So paint the scene for us. How does an 18-year-old kid get to his father inside a state prison to kill him?
Well, Pedro had been arrested by this point. He was already in the system. And in the Brazilian prison system of that era, movement between wings, or arranging a transfer, let's just say, where there's a will and perhaps a well-placed bribe or a threat, there is a way.
So he gets into the cell, or the holding area, wherever it was.
And he executes him.
The source mentions an improvised weapon.
Most likely a shiv or a sharpened piece of metal from the prison yard. But the brutality of the act is what really stands out here. He didn't just stab him once. He stabbed his father dozens of times.
Now, there is a myth, a rumor about this. The source alludes to it, about the heart.
Yes, the infamous heart story. Legend has it that after killing him, Pedro cut out his father's heart and took a bite of it.
Did that actually happen?
It's heavily debated. Pedro has claimed it did in some interviews and then denied it in others. The source leaves it intentionally ambiguous.
But again, like the skull injury from earlier, the fact is less important than the legend.
Exactly. The fact that people believe he did it made him an absolute monster in the eyes of the other inmates.
It's so primal. It's mythological. Eating the heart of the father, that's like Cronus in Greek mythology.
It is the ultimate act of dominance. By killing the father, he wasn't just taking revenge for his mother, he was surpassing him.
How do you mean?
He was saying, you thought you were the violent one. No, I am the violence now. I am the apex predator here.
The source argues this was the exact moment he transitioned fully from victim to judge.
Absolutely. Think about it. Before this, his violence was reactive or protective of his family unit. After this, he was the absolute authority.
If he could kill the man who gave him life, then no one is safe.
Right. No rule was above his own personal law.
So he's in prison. He's just killed his dad. He's only, 18 or 19 years old. You would think, okay, society is safe now. He's in a concrete box. The story is over.
And for 99% of criminals, the story is over there. They serve their time, maybe get into a few scuffles in the yard, and that's it.
But for Pedrinho Matador, the prison wasn't the end. It was the arena.
It was his hunting ground.
This is the part of the source material that genuinely blew my mind. A huge chunk of his 70-plus kills happened while he was already incarcerated.
Yes, he killed 47 people inside the prison system.
47? How is that even physically possible? I mean, I'm trying to visualize this. Are the guards just sleeping? Is he some kind of ninja?
We really have to understand the context of Brazilian prisons in the 1970s and 80s. The source paints a picture of extreme structural overcrowding.
How bad are we talking?
We're talking about cells built for 8 men holding 40.
Wow. So it's just pure chaos.
It's a pressure cooker. The heat, the smell, constant noise,
Yeah.
and the severe understaffing. The guards control the perimeter, right? The walls, the gates.
To keep them from escaping.
Exactly. But inside the cell blocks,
Yeah.
in the showers, the cafeteria, the yard, that is 100% inmate territory.
Bird and the flies.
Totally. The state had effectively abandoned control of the interior. And in that vacuum, power structures naturally emerge. Gangs emerge.
And Pedro emerged.
And Pedro emerged.
But he wasn't a gang leader in the traditional sense, was he? He wasn't running a drug empire from his cell.
No, he was very much a lone wolf. But a lone wolf with a code. And this is where we go back to that target selection we talked about earlier.
Right.
He wasn't just killing anyone who looked at him wrong. Though I should add, he did kill a few cellmates for snoring too loudly or looking at him weird.
Yeah, let's not make him a saint here. Killing a guy for snoring is completely psychotic.
It is. It shows his extreme volatility.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of his targets, rapists, child abusers, people who had committed violent crimes against women.
He was cleaning house.
He literally viewed himself as a sanitation worker for the prison system.
And this creates that paradoxical status the outline talks about, because usually a guy who kills 47 people is terrified of everyone and everyone is terrified of him.
Yes.
But the other inmates, they respected him.
They feared him, certainly. You don't want to cross the guy who ate his dad's heart.
Yeah.
But yes, there was a deep level of respect. Because in the prison hierarchy, rapists are at the absolute bottom. They are despised by the general population.
So by targeting them, Pedro was enforcing the convict code.
It's a vigilante identity. He's doing the dirty work the other inmates want done.
It really highlights the total failure of the institution, doesn't it?
Absolutely. When the state fails to protect prisoners from each other or fails to punish the worst of the worst adequately in the eyes of the inmates, someone like Pedro steps in to fill that void.
It's weirdly, I don't know if seductive is the right word, not the violence itself, but the idea of it.
I know what you mean. The idea that someone is looking out for the moral order when the cops won't.
That's the danger. It appeals to our primitive sense of fairness. If you're listening to this, you might catch yourself thinking, well, those guys deserved it. We want the bad guys to suffer.
And Pedro was making them suffer.
So we find ourselves rooting for a serial killer, which is a very uncomfortable place to be mentally.
It's the Dexter effect.
Exactly, like the TV show.
But we have to remember, Dexter is fiction. Pedro was real. And the people he killed, however bad their own crimes were human beings who were denied due process. Pedro just appointed himself God. Which brings us to the clinical diagnosis part of the source material. Because reading this, you have to ask yourself, was he insane? It's the first question everyone asks when they see the numbers. Was he hallucinating? Did he have severe schizophrenia?
Right. Did a demon tell him to kill the snorer?
The source is very clear on this. Psychiatric evaluations were conducted multiple times over the decades.
And the results?
The answer was consistently no. No psychosis, no delusions. He was fully oriented to time and space. He knew exactly what he was doing every time he picked up his shiv.
So if he's not crazy in the legal or medical sense, what is he?
The diagnosis they settled on is antisocial personality disorder, or APD, with strong psychopathic traits.
Let's dig into that. We talked about APD earlier, the lack of empathy, the rule breaking, but how does that explain the strict moral code he had?
This is where the concept of instrumental violence comes in. This is a very key term in the source material.
Instrumental violence. Okay, walk me through it.
Think of it this way. Most of us view violence as a breakdown. You lose your temper,
Yeah.
you get overwhelmed, you hit something. It's a failure of emotional control.
Right. It's a mistake.
For a psychopath with instrumental tendencies, violence isn't a failure, it's a tool. It's a hammer.
Okay.
If I have a nail that's sticking out, I use a hammer to pound it down. I don't hate the nail. I'm not angry at the nail. I just need it flat so the board is smooth.
So for Pedro, the rapist in the next cell is the nail.
Exactly. And killing him is the hammer. It's highly calculated. It's purposeful. It achieves a specific goal, either removing a bad person or establishing his own dominance in the yard.
That is so much colder than anger.
It is. It's chilling. Because you can calm an angry person down. You can talk them off the ledge.
You can reason with emotion.
But you cannot talk someone out of using a screwdriver if they genuinely think they need to turn a screw. Pedro viewed violence as a completely necessary function of his life.
I'm not losing control. I'm taking control.
Precisely.
So he keeps hammering down nails year after year, and the sentences keep piling up. The source says he was sentenced to over 400 years in prison. 400 years!
Which is symbolic, obviously. It's the judicial system screaming at him, you are never, ever getting out of here.
And this is the part that I think will really shock our listeners who aren't familiar with Brazilian law.
Oh, yeah.
He did get out.
He did. He walked free.
How? How do you have a 400-year sentence for 70 murders and just walk free?
It's a specific quirk of the Brazilian Penal Code at the time. Article 75 of their penal code strictly prohibited keeping anyone incarcerated for more than 30 years.
30 years. That was the hard cap for any crime.
That was the absolute maximum. The underlying legal philosophy was that life imprisonment or death penalties were fundamentally inhumane, and that the ultimate goal of prison should always be rehabilitation, not eternal punishment. So no matter how many years you get on paper, 400, 1,000 away, after 30 years, they legally have to open the door.
Note that the limit has since been raised to 40 years, I believe.
Yes, it was changed later, but back then it was 30.
So the clock just ran out for him.
Well, he stayed a bit longer than 30 because of the crimes he committed inside, which added some time that had to be calculated differently under the law. But essentially, yes. In 2007 initially, and then fully released later on.
Imagine being his neighbor.
I can't even fathom it.
You're outside watering your lawn, and the guy who ate his dad's heart just moves in next door.
It creates a fascinating sociological experiment, though.
Mm.
What does a man like that do in the modern digital world?
Well, he didn't go into hiding, that's for sure. He didn't change his name to John Smith and work at a grocery store.
No. He fully embraced the notoriety.
He became a YouTuber.
It sounds like a bad joke, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Serial killer creates YouTube channel. But he did. He started a channel. He got on TikTok.
And what was he even posting? Like cooking videos, vlogs.
He was commenting on crime. He became a true crime pundit.
You have to be kidding me.
He would sit there, look directly at the camera, and critique other criminals. He would say things like, oh, this guy who killed his wife, he's a coward, he deserves to die. Or this bandit who robbed the bank. He was sloppy. He didn't plan it right.
He was doing what we're doing. He was hosting a podcast, basically. But from the perspective of a literal mass murderer.
And people watched. Millions of views.
Why? Why did we watch him?
That is the really uncomfortable question the source leaves us with. It calls it the profound risk of legitimizing violence.
By clicking subscribe, are we condoning what he did?
In a way, we are turning him into a folk hero, a pop culture figure.
Yeah.
We strip away the blood and the horror and the reality of the victims, and he just becomes a character. He becomes Pedrinho Matador, the brand.
It normalizes it. It tells the next angry 14-year-old kid, hey, if you kill enough bad guys, you don't go to jail forever. You get a silver play button.
Exactly. And that is incredibly dangerous for society. It completely blurs the line between justice and vengeance, between entertainment and real-life tragedy.
The source material really hammers this home in the final section, part 7, systemic failure. Because it's so easy to look at Pedro and say he's the problem. He's a monster case closed.
But Pedro is a symptom. He is the end result of a broken machine.
Let's list the failures the source identifies, because there were so many off-ramps in this guy's life where this could have been stopped.
Let's start at the very beginning. Prenatal. The neighbors heard the screaming. The extended family knew the violence was happening. Nobody intervened.
The state didn't protect the pregnant mother.
Strike one.
Then the childhood physical abuse. The school system, the local police, nobody stepped in to save the boy from the father.
Strike two.
Then the prison system. You take a highly violent, traumatized young man, put him in a cage with no supervision, severe overcrowding, and a bunch of other violent men.
You don't rehabilitate him in that environment. You train him. You turn him into a gladiator. Strike three! And finally, the media environment that gives him a microphone and an audience when he gets out.
The source argues that we can't just write him off as a monster and move on, because if we do that, we completely ignore the factory that built the monster in the first place.
Precisely. Understanding Pedro isn't about forgiving him.
No, definitely not.
It's not about saying, oh, poor guy, he had a tough childhood, he killed 70 people. He is absolutely responsible for his actions. But understanding him is about prevention.
If we want to stop the next Pedrinho, we have to stop the domestic violence early. We have to fundamentally fix the prison systems. We have to address the poverty and the lawlessness that breeds this.
Violence is not a virus that just falls from the sky. It is shaped, it is reinforced, and it is normalized over time by society's inactions.
It's a really heavy lesson.
It is.
You look at the arc of this entire life. Born with a bruised skull from his father's boot, dying, well, we didn't actually mention his death yet, but he was eventually killed, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yes. In 2023, the violence finally caught up with him. He was shot, and his throat was cut in his hometown.
Live by the sword, die by the sword.
A cyclical violent ending to a cyclical violent life.
So as we wrap this up, usually we try to end on a high note, like, hey, science is cool, or history is fascinating.
Not today.
No, not today. Today, I think we need to end on a question for everyone listening.
I agree.
We spent this entire deep dive talking about Pedro, but I really can't stop thinking about the YouTube comments, the fans.
A reflection in the mirror for us.
Yeah. If violence is normalized over time, like the source says, what does our fascination with this story say about us? Why are we so drawn to the enforcer archetype?
Is it because we secretly want someone to break the rules and enforce our own version of justice? Or is it just morbid curiosity?
I don't have the answer to that. But I think it's really worth asking yourself next time you click on a true crime headline or binge documentary. Are we part of the mechanism that creates these legends?
It's a question worth losing some sleep over.
On that cheery note, thank you for listening to this deep dive. This was a tough one, but an important one.
Stay safe out there. And stay critical of the media you consume.
We'll see you next time.